We're so happy you're here. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We know, those of us that know you know how busy your schedule is, and to carve out some time for NNOA and our gathering is special to us. So once again, welcome. Just sit back and relax. The format is you're sitting with family by the fire, having one of your family members who has some information to share, and just sit back and relax and enjoy it. So let me give you just from this tremendous former naval officer's bio. She hails from the great state of Georgia, is a graduate of Savannah State University, and absolutely worked her way through the ranks of the Navy, breaking glass barriers and the ceilings and anything that was in her way, which culminated in a groundbreaking promotion as the third Black female admiral in the 248-year history of the U.S. Navy. I could stop there and you would go, oh my goodness, this person is amazing. But over a 32-year military service, let me give you a few pearls of what she did. Commanding officer of Navy Recruit Training Command. That's our one boot camp in Great Lakes. And so that's a pretty special place. Executive assistant and naval aide to the assistant secretary of the Navy for Manpower Reserve Affairs. And I'm not sure, was that Buddy Penn while he was the MNRA?
Actually, it was Secretary Juan Garcia.
Garcia, yes, at our NOA conference as well. Director of Total Force Requirements and Commander of the Navy Recruiting Command. So that about wraps up all of the accession opportunities, the enlisted sailors at the boot camp, and the entire Navy Recruiting Command she has commanded at one time or another. At the FAA, when she transitioned to the federal government, she was the assistant administrator for human resource management, and that was direct involvement with recruitment, retention, and accession for nearly 45,000 federal personnel across the entire nation. Outside of her professional achievements, she's involved in all kinds of charitable and work in her community, as well as an active member serving on several national boards and supporting programs that enhance well-being of others. So if you know Annie Andrews, you know that she's not just about Annie, she's about helping others attain what it is they're trying to attain. Finally, she now serves as the president and chief executive officer of Andrews Consulting Enterprises, LLC, her company that specializes in offering consultation on human force management and people-related managers. Tonight, Annie is probably going to speak on what is her leadership philosophy, the 3 A's: authenticity, approachability, and accountability. And if you can master those 3 things,
join the meeting.
Successful at anything you set out to be. So without further ado, you didn't chime in to listen to me, you chimed in to listen to Annie. And so Annie, with our appreciation, I'll turn the mic over to you. Thank you so much again for being here.
Tony, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. I really appreciate it. And all I can tell you is that none of us, as we know, get to be where we are if it wasn't for great people like yourself and many others of you that are on here that whether junior or senior, you've been mentors, you've been wonderful people that I've had a chance to either serve with, work with, or work for. So my first thing is to say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued service and all the great things that you do. I just really appreciate everyone. So thank you so much. So you're right. There's a lot of things I'd like to talk about, and I'm just so anxious and excited because NNOA is my family. And I appreciate all the things that you all have done and continue to do to keep this going, because it's all about that social aspect of life and what we do next, and always about passing the torch and also leaning back and forward so that we can move the next person there. So as Tony said, some of the things I started thinking about, of course, are what are those 3 things that drive you? So you're going to hear a lot of them. But the first couple of those that I really think that really makes a genuine leader is being authentic. So authenticity, approachability, and accountability. So I call it the 3 A's. Like I said, you'll have a lot to hear of all the different alphabets. I may go through them, but never enough time to go through A through Z because I know I really want to hear from you and your questions that you have of me. So when I talk about these 3 traits, they really are the foundation to me of effective leadership. And why is that? First of all, be yourself. I don't think I've changed. Just gotten older and grayer, since the instant days, but I'm perhaps those of you certainly that know me, always the same. And a rank or a promotion do not make a person. People may have changed around you once you became a commander or captain or lieutenant, but you don't change. You remain the same. And that's what I would say is always great, really, for me. The also, when you're authentic, people can really see through that. You could be working with someone and they're one thing to you during the day, and after hours, it's another, or you see them somewhere and they're not themselves. I consider myself that being authentic as an authentic leader is very important. I also believe in being approachable. I know a lot of times too, as you become in rank and everything, people start saying, oh, well, you have to go through. And believe me, I got in trouble so many times, probably with my chiefs or my lieutenants that, ma'am, they can't come in. I understand because they were trying to help me to get my work done for the day. But it's always important for me for people to be approachable. Because if you're approachable, I feel whether it's in any field that you are, that people will come to you to tell you, not as my great grandmother would say, tell me not what you want me to hear, but what I need to know. And I really think that have helped me throughout my career because by being approachable, people will come to you and let you know that, hey, there's a bolt or something missing from the plane. So and so is not doing well. Somebody's at their desk. I think they're having a hard day. So that we can take care of our people and see what is the need for safety, for health, and everything else. So being approachable is great. And the third part of that A is accountability. Being accountable as a leader is also important. Why do I say that? A lot of times, and I'm sure you ran into it at some time or the other, people want to take credit for certain things, um, but you have to hold yourself accountable, whether things go well or things don't. But sometimes how it is, people want to say, ooh, this didn't go so well. So and so did it. I was that junior officer. Oh, it's that person. But you, as a leader, good, bad, or different, be accountable for those actions. If things do not go well, then I would say get into the part of training and educating and stopping so that you could always have safety and making sure that people are doing the right thing for the right reason. Another area that I'd like to just hit on is self awareness, empathy, and emotional intelligence. So, what is self awareness? Being aware of your strength, and I like to call them assets and liabilities instead of weakness and strength. Assets and liabilities, we all have something that we bring to the table, which is just phenomenal. Know what they are. Also know the things that because I would look at myself and do a self assessment that I'm self aware that maybe I need to do this better. Perhaps I need to get out a little bit more. Stop using the I, because I is not in the word team. It's we. And how do we make that? So self aware maybe of the way that we talk, the way that we act, the way that we respond, because it is a team effort. We may be the leader and the person that may be the responsible person, but we know, we know good and well that we have to be self aware because people will watch you. Now, I remember when I made flag officer, and I probably was in the office, talking with, some of the junior folks. I was like, wow, man, I sure like to have this. Of course, I'm not going to sing, although I can tell you I'm an Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, but I really didn't want my walls in that gray building to be pink. Don't worry, they didn't color it pink. But again, you have to be careful what you say because they will take that for action because they want to do and they want to please you. And all I want to do is get the work done. Empathy. Let's think about empathy. To me, that's one of the most strongest emotions that a person can have. And matter of fact, it's one of the best things that you can have is to empathize with others. There's a saying that goes, you want to treat people right and do the best because you never know what they may be going through, a bad night, a divorce, the children, schoolwork, personal things that could be going on. So have that empathy, a death in the family, a divorce, a marriage. There are so many things, but know when we need to do that and how we need to do it. And that goes back again to being authentic and all of these things, being authentic, having the self awareness of yourself as well as the others that are around you, and having that empathy. When I mention the word emotional intelligence, I'll go back to say how also with emotional intelligence, empathy falls right in that too. Because with empathy, to me, it builds strong relationships, it demonstrates understanding, and it creates an inclusive and supportive environment for all to work in. And this has gone along with me, whether I worked in the Navy for 32 years or even at the FAA, and of course, in my daily business. So the number three group, let's just mention to you, is fairness, honesty, and commitment. Now, when I say this is a lot of things too, like say, even when you leave the Navy or when you start transitioning out, think about those skill sets that you had while you were in and how that's going to help you when you move forward and other things you can do. And employers recognize what skill set that you bring to them and being fair and firm. And I know had people to say that to me, said, hey, you're fair, you're firm. And I will tell you a nickname I had one time was Iron Fist. It's like, how in the world they get that? Well, of course, in leadership positions, you have to make sure that people are following the rules. So the Iron Fist came about one time when I had to talk to one of my sailors that did not do the right thing, but I had a chance to talk with them. But I just didn't, I don't go off base. I don't yell voice, I don't use profanity. Oh my gosh, that just was not a part of me. But you'd be surprised the many people that I've heard that have. But that's not the way you do business. So while I was talking with the individual, they had much more respect because they were so disappointed that they disappointed me. So they said, ma'am, I will tell you, we call you Iron Fist because you have really a heart of gold, but you still put out that hammer. So, yes, you can say what you can do and say to people effectively without using all of the adjectives and all the explicit things that sometimes comes about.
Annie, I think that's also known as the velvet hammer, yes?
Yes, that's what they should have called it, but I thought Iron Fist had a little,
It's made
fling
of
to it. I was like,
velvet, but
ooh,
it's a
that's
it's a hammer nonetheless. You will. So let me give you a chance to just catch your breath here for a second, and let me check
thank you.
and see if there is anybody who has any questions. If you have questions, you can place them in the chat. That's an easy way to do it. But I've also known that on these calls, sometimes your question is better said than written. It's difficult for you to express your question in writing. So if that's the case, then just let me know in the chat that you'd like to speak your question instead of write your question, and I'll find an opportunity during a natural break in her comments to let you ask your question. So with that being said, I don't see any questions in the chat. I just kind of said what I just said. I typed it in the chat. So feel free. Questions, no questions are off base. I find that in my speaking roles, if there's a question that's off base, I just won't answer it. You can ask it all you want, but doesn't mean it's going to get answered. But feel free to ask your questions anyway. And I have perused down the list of who's here. And boy, do we have a very nice eclectic group of folks tonight. So feel free to ask your question. And with that said, you can continue, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Tony. And yes, please feel free because I will leave time so that we can talk or conversations or comments you may have. It's just that I wanted to at least go through what I consider are some of the just the pearls, I would say, of things.
Okay,
So
I
I
see a
talked
hand up.
about,
I see a hand up if you want
yes,
to take a
please.
question, Michael
Sure.
Johnson.
Hey, this is Navy retired Michael Johnson. I want to say that I want to share this with you. I enlisted in the Navy in 1973. Women were considered, they were still known as waves. I'm sure you've heard that term, waves. And
Yes.
they were relegated to either to dispersing or medical, not allowed to be on ships, but they were on tugboats in Norfolk and San Diego and Jacksonville. And so it is quite exhilarating to see someone such as yourself who there was not much expected of, and we started at the very, very bottom. And to see over the years, I served for 42 years, to see how people can get the recognition, get the power, the authority to operate at the highest level, and to have that respect to go along with that. That is truly outstanding to see that. So I want to commend you. And let me say one thing, that I'll be quiet. I'm CNO of the Navy was Elmo Zumwalt. Um, I think Elmo Zumwalt CNO. I was in Norfolk a few years ago, and I ran across a gentleman. What they had just said, they just commissioned the USS Zumwalt over NOB, and the entire leadership, the CO, the XO, and I think either the one of the other leading officers, all females. And see, to go from 1973, where you were marginally accepted, to having equity and equality at the highest level. So that's very, very, I'd say, encouraging to me to see where we as Blacks, male and female, can ascend to the highest levels in the military. I know that's not relevant to what you're saying, but I just couldn't hold it. I had to share that with you. I appreciate it.
Michael, thank you so much for your 42 years of service, and I really appreciate it. But I will tell you this, the only reason why I'm here and was able to serve is because I stood on the shoulders of folks just like yourself, other people that have went before me. And it's interesting that you say that, because although that may have been back in 72 and back in about maybe between 2008, 2010, I remember as commanding officer of the Navy's only boot camp, and we invited several World War II members for the remembrance of Pearl Harbor. And I remember when taking them around, which was just fascinating and wonderful. So we can't forget our past. When I took them around, and the gentleman, an older gentleman, of course, he looked at me and said, I was telling him about the place and explaining to him about the training that we do today. And he said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, I looked at my chest and I was like, okay, all right. I think I'm okay. But it was interesting because he said, I know I'm calling you, sir, but I don't even know what to call you because we did not have waves or women. I said, of course, as being from the South, I wanted to say sir to him, which of course I still did. But I said, sir, just call me captain, because that's exactly what I was. And they couldn't think of Fanneman by saying ma'am because it wasn't in his language. So, it's so interesting to take people for the value who they are because they didn't know. So thank you again for your comment. I appreciate it. But I'm telling you, I sit here very proud today because I know there's so many that keep coming up after me because, right now we have what, four African American females that made admiral in the Navy for African American women, but we know there are going to be more someday. So we just need your continued support across the board. So
Absolutely.
again, thank you. So again, I spoke on fairness, honesty, and commitment. And the reason is because honesty builds trust as it demonstrates reliability and credibility. And believe me, that's the trait you will need in going into and transitioning out. People know that the military comes with commitment. Other areas is that, the military and other places are a continued place to learn. So continuous learning is also really good because you want to be and known as a thought leader and build resiliency from that. Because encouraging personal growth, matter of fact, if it's the people that you work for or work with, that's always, always the best thing, of course, that we can do. Now, another area is that, when we're leaders, we want to make sure that we are decision makers. And making decisions are certainly most important. So we're making decisions because, sometimes people waffle around and they're not sure exactly what is needed and what's there. And you want a leader that have a vision. You want a leader that you can follow. You want to be the leader that people know what to expect when you go in. Let's say, for instance, you're going to your new command or new area, whether it's department head or a junior officer or even a commander. What is it that you want people to know about you? And I would say one of the things that you are probably already familiar with is think about the 6 words, like when you walk on deck, that people are going to know they can expect that from me. So not only did I do that while I was in the military, but when walking into the FAA, people were trying to, figure me out or what is this going to be like or what to expect. And I went in with something just simple. And that is, and you know it, so it's not new, but I had to look at the environment that I was in. So my 6 words was people first, mission always, and you matter. You matter was important because I had to come in to do some groundbreaking things to help with the people to get them back, in the avenue of serving and doing always the right thing. So again, we learn from those. I would say have in your pocket before you take over or after you see the environment. What is it? Because having a vision, having those things that people know what to expect when you come on board and communicating that effectively is important. Another thing I'll just mention to you is in reference to teamwork, collaboration, synergy, and team engagement. You all have done it, but how do we do that so effectively? Leadership always foster collaboration among the team. That ensure that every team member is an important player. And when you see that somebody is not fitting in, like perhaps like a wallflower, go to that person, see what's going on. Have the chief or a petty officer or somebody talk to them because they may have a lot to say, but feel that you hadn't given them the opportunity. So that's one thing that I enjoy doing and talking with them, and also having just an opportunity for people to sit. At the FAA, I started something that called Your Voice Matters. And that's because it does. You want to hear from them in a non-threatening environment through lunch. Whoever want to call or get on the Zoom or come in, they can do that. And sometimes that's again helps with synergizing your team, collaborating your team, and definitely building strong team organization. So I always ask the question, what would your legacy be? What would you want to leave as your legacy? So a couple of things I wrote down here that I wanted to mention to you. And then I'm going to stop and go in through some questions and see what you have for me. But let's say some positive takeaways that really are great traits. So I mentioned several of those, whether it was being authentic, whether it's for you to make sure that you are approachable and accountable, whether you show empathy, having that self-awareness, having collaboration, being synergizing your team, being fair, honest, and committed. Continue learning. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So I tried to wrap it up. So here's some positive takeaways from that. Leadership should be marked by commitment to collaboration, engagement, and the creation of a culture where teamwork leads to extraordinary achievements. 2, leaders should forge a future of remarkable achievements, meaningful connections, and positive change. 3, the leadership journey should be guided by self-awareness, growth, and the unwavering commitment to become the best person you can be. So hopefully during the time period that you ask yourself, what would your legacy be? What would you want it to be? And you think about that not only where you serve now, but even for your family. What will that be? And I asked the question. So at this time, I'm going to open up and you can ask me questions about my transition from the military to working as a senior executive in government. What do you have for me, please? I want to hear from you.
Great comments, Annie, and longtime NNOA friend and family member Tina Caston has had her hand up for a while. Tina, go ahead, sweetie.
Thank you, Captain, and thank you, Admiral. I don't know if you knew this. My youngest sister, three of my siblings are also Navy veterans. My youngest sibling met Admiral Andrews when she was I think in Florida, and they sang in the same choir. I didn't know if any of you knew that she was in a choir. Just had to show that. Admiral, my tradition of civilian life wasn't so much military to civilian. My issue was people get tired of me too quickly. I'm so passionate about volunteering and helping veterans and their family members. And I'm very quick to pass off information. And so there are a lot of times when I'm not appreciated. I haven't let this deter me in volunteering, but I want to be able to rein it in because your fireside chat is so appropriate for me right now. And I just need some advice.
First of all, Tina, shipmate, what a pleasure. I remember your sister. Of course, we were all young in those days, but I do remember her. And I certainly remember you. And there's no doubt in my mind from the moment I met you and the things that I've known about you, even across the years. You know, friendship is not someone that maybe you talk to each and every day. But what was really great is knowing that your heart is in the right place and that you want to serve like many of us. First, I'll tell you, Tina, is to give yourself grace. You know what you do, and many others know what you do, but sometimes, we don't always receive that recognition. But know that you serve even a greater power that knows what you do. And you have to think about it yourself sometime and say, okay, you have make sure that it's not taking away from your work that you're doing, the other stuff that you're doing. You give of yourself, and then ask yourself, as a question I propose, what would your legacy be? So maybe you charm it down to, I really want people to know, and again, I'm just throwing this out here, that I served my nation, that I continue to serve by helping my fellow veteran, that I have done and will do the best I can to my ability. So make sure these things not affecting your personal health. We know right now we have leaders of our country, leaders even in other countries that have personal health issues. These are not the things that will take us to an early grave. That's not what we want. So I would say I would like for you, and I can only recommend, to sit back, give yourself grace, because you've done so many things for people. And the recognition comes in so many different ways. The way I say that is that sometimes people reach out to me through all those social media. I know I'm on some of them, but I think my nephew put me on some of them too. The Instagram, I never knew what Snapchat was until I walk into a building and someone said, hey, can I do this? And the next thing I know, it's aired somewhere. I don't even know where it went. I don't even know how they get that stuff out there. But anyway, one of the things is that people, I'm sure you're thankful for many things that you've done. I've had people to reach out years later to say thank you for giving them an opportunity to serve. Or, you know what? You didn't keep me in the Navy. You gave me NJP and I'm out. I'm a policeman today. And the only thing I really want to know is where they are so I don't drive in that area. Just kidding. But really, I've received notes all the time. And the reason they said is that what I did was probably the best thing for them. So know for yourself that you did the best thing. I will say we should not lose sleep overnight of things. We think about it, get up and write those things down, what's on there, but know that people do think of you. I appreciate you, Tina. And knowing in your heart that you do the right thing, that's all that matters.
You know, my comments are the problem isn't you. The problem is them. I can tell you from my heart, dear, that during my presidency as the NNOA national president, I considered you one of the greatest assets under my charge. You were always willing to help. The word no has never been in your vocabulary. And if somebody thinks that you're not a contributor or over contributing, it's their issue, not yours, dear. Absolutely not. What a great question. Michael
Thank
Johnson,
you, Tina.
your hand is up.
Yes, Admiral, I want to sort of chime in on what Tina was saying. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I grew up here. I went through all the racial strife in the 60s and the 70s, so forth and so on. The phrase is called self-validation. Tina, you know that people may be envious, jealous, angry, whatever, of your accomplishments and your achievement to the point that you may become a non-person in their eye because they don't know how to perceive you. They don't know what you've gone through, and they expect you to have failed somewhere along the line, but you did not. Learn to validate yourself. You think highly of yourself. What they think doesn't really matter because you're doing the job, getting the personal satisfaction that you've done and done it well. Now, one of the things, if there are any younger officers that are listening, I like to say that I've been CEO of several units. When I would go to a different command, whatever, and then I would say what my expectations are and who I am. And then I would have everyone to stand up, introduce themselves, and I want to know what brought you to the Navy, what can you offer the Navy, what can the Navy offer you? And when they answer those things, and then everybody in that room is now buying into this person's goals, dreams, and aspirations. Now you have advocates for yourself trying to help you reach your goals, and you'd be amazed how less problems you have, less discipline, people motivated because everybody is helping you reach your goals. So any of the young JOs out there, sort of try to put that into practice sometime and see how it works for you. Thank you.
Mike, I think you must be reading my mind because I was just getting ready to call out any of the junior officers. I'll make that 04 and below that are on this call. I'd like you to unmute and introduce yourself. It's not very often you get an opportunity to ask a question and be in the presence of someone as experienced as Admiral Andrews. So if there are any ones, go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself and ask a question if you would.
And don't be shy about it. You know, I remember as a junior officer, and I will tell you, I am an introvert, the largest I ever. People don't believe that, but I definitely am. So I want to make sure this is one of those areas where we can just ask a question. Um, Comments, anything that you have on your mind, what's going on, because you have a group of wonderful people here that we all are here for you to help. So please feel free to do so.
Okay, don't force me to call you out individually. It's Wendy Cook. Are you listening on? Unmute and introduce yourself.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm Wendy Cook. I'm a captain at Naval Medical Center San Diego, and I'm, going to be retiring before too long. I'm kind of wondering what it was like to I don't know, leave the Navy behind. Was that difficult for you?
Great question.
That is a wonderful question, Wendy. Thank you so much for what you are doing and all the best to you in your transition. I want to tell you, the world is waiting for you. There's a lot of stuff out there for you to do. So no worries in that. Because as I said before, and I want to remind you, you bring so much to the table. But yes, there is a difference when it's like, wow, because all of us have that inside. It's the anxiety of what do I do next? Will anybody ever want me to work for them? Can I do the same things? Is it the same people? What do I do when you transition? I will say for me, the transition wasn't difficult. Now, let me make sure I let you know, do I miss my Navy? Absolutely. Do I miss the people that I worked and served with every day? Absolutely. Do I miss the people that I know have those skill sets, that have the leadership ability, that have the integrity, that have the discipline, that have the loyalty, that is selflessness? Yes, I do miss that. But I'm here to tell you, as you move into the civilian world, you're going to find some of that too. For those that have also retired from the military or government service or something else. Now, the transition, of course, is never, it appears sometimes that it can be difficult. But one of the things I would say with me was that when you're ready, you're ready. And when you know it's time to go, it's time to go. One thing is that I didn't even know what I was going to do when I got out of the military. Because, everybody tell you take 6 months off, rest, see the world. And in jobs like yourself and many others, gee, Wendy, I mean, I was used to going. My last job, of course, it was in recruiting. So I made sure that I saw all 26 of the districts. I visit them. I visit as many recruiting stations as I could. I had a goal that I wanted to finish and finish strong. And some of those, of course, was 3 in particular, was to take the Navy to the 100 month of making mission, me desiring to see all of my commanders and thank them personally across the nation, and I did. And the third was increasing women in those underrepresented fields. And so there's a sense of time where I've done my part. And you have too, Wendy. You've rose to the rank of captain. You've done what you can. You're working on one of the most prestigious, hospitals in the places there. And now it's time to move on and to help others doing the same things that you know by bringing that same passion, compassion, and empathy to the next place. So I'm here to tell you, you're going to do well. It is it would seem kind of scary, but for me, as I transitioned, I put in for the job, but I had no idea I was going to get the job. I was too busy, doing my medical stuff, doing all the stuff that we're supposed to do. And the next thing you know, excuse me, before I actually got out, they called me for an interview. And I will tell you, and I'm not embarrassed to say, I had no idea what in the world do I wear to an interview. I'm not in military clothes. I know it's not going to church, but I'd have church clothes. And so, of course, I know I have, civilian suits and stuff. So I did. And the interesting thing is that know who you are. Let me just tell you something really quick, Wendy. So when I went in for my interview, and you'll probably find this too, what are we used to saying? Yes, sir. No, ma'am. Those type of things. And of course, for me being from the South, the state of Georgia, that was normally for me because my great grandmother lived to be 105. If you did not say ma'am, you will know, you will feel the difference. So when I went to speak at the time with the administrator, and they wanted me to call them by first name. And you don't go and walk into your captain or walk into your admiral or them and call them by first name when they're your boss. And I'm like, I don't even know this person. And I'm going to say, yes, sir, or no, ma'am, or however the case may be. In this case, it was sir. And they said, oh, no, call me by my first name. And, they mentioned that. And I still said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the feedback I got was that, she is militaristic, whatever that's supposed to mean. I said, gee, are these people watching MASH? Private Benjamin? What are they watching, for heaven's sake? But the thing about it is that why I wanted to explain that to you is because still be who you are. I was still hired, but I took the comment as a constructive criticism, but in a very good way, because what I always knew now have changed, but I stayed who I was because staying respectful is still great. You know, later on, I still don't think even in the 6 years I worked there that I ever called him by the first name. I really didn't. You know, it's sir, Mr. Administrator, and they really love that. Only because their concern was that why should we hire her? She's not listening. Will she be flexible to work in this organization? And all they said was, call me by my first name, and I did still the sir type thing. So I'm just saying the little things that pick up on, be who you are. That's the authenticity of everything. I hope that was helpful. If there's anything, other questions,
Yeah.
Wendy?
No, that's super helpful. Thank you, Annie. I really thank you for sharing your wisdom. I've really enjoyed listening to you today.
Oh, thank you. And Wendy, again, they're out there waiting for you. All the best.
Wendy,
That's exciting.
as a military medical professional, I can assure you that you are going to be embraced wherever you decide to apply. Your skill sets that you have learned in the military far exceeds many other folks that haven't been there, done that. So I would not be afraid of transition. Now, Janet Lomax have had her hand up very patiently for quite a while. So, Janet, please.
Good evening, Janet Lomax, retired Navy Captain HR, Admiral Andrews. Thank you. She is my mentor, always have been. You answered the question I was going to ask about the transition, but something else did come to mind. How did you work in the space once you worked in the civilian environment where the person who is senior to you may not have as much experience or know-how that you do? And then when you were in that place where you were working for someone who did not have the same amount of expertise or knowledge that you did, when they asked for your opinion about whatever the situation is, and then they did not take it into consideration, but yet you're responsible. How did you navigate that?
First of all, Janet, what a pleasure. It is so great to hear your voice, and thank you for the outstanding service you've done for this country and what you continue to do. That's a very good question and comments along the way. The experience basically is that you go into a place, and I want to make sure I paraphrase this right, and you have the opportunity perhaps to make a difference and a change, and you know exactly what to do. But the person that you work for is they want to hear from you, but yet they don't take what you are saying to them to make a difference. Is that somewhat correct?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of times, what I've done in similar situations like that is that, first of all, it's so hard to change a person who believe that they know everything. And you have to understand, are they saying that because you're a woman? Do they not find you credible, but they know they want you to work for them because you're doing a great job? But how do you make it their thought? Sometimes people are concerned about you getting the credit for coming up with such a great idea. You want the idea to be there because you know what is the right thing to do. So in that regards, how can you perhaps try to make that individual a part of your planning? Letting that person know that, you know, sir or ma'am, this is the way I think that things are going to go. It has worked before. And I know sometimes they don't like to hear that. It has worked before, but how about you announcing it? You're saying it. I give you the things to say to make this a go. And therefore, they feel as though they were the ones. Because you and I know sometimes you can sit around the table and you can come up with the great ideas, and sometimes you don't say it. Or because of your being, as I know you, Janet, so respectful, you probably wait and tell the person, I think you should do it this way. It may be the way that it comes off to them that you're trying to take their job. You know exactly what to do. So have you ever thought about making it, giving it to them after you explain to them to then make the announcement about some sort of change or project that they can do?
So I have done that. And that was received okay. That one of the challenges I've found in my post-Navy career is that when I share my knowledge sometimes about, okay, because my job is to be that military advisor, they still question it. And so, well, I'll go ask somebody else, but then they'll come back and go, oh, you were right. So then that sits kind of, well, I don't want to say, sure, I was right, but then how do I respond in that situation?
That's interesting because I'm thinking, um, is the person a male?
No, it's a female.
Ah, interesting. Sometimes it works that way too. There gotta be something there, Janet, that there's a trust that's concerning. And let's say if that was me, and I remember sometime going in, even as a flag officer, and you're sitting around and people are like, who's this representing? She's not going to tell us, what to do. But again, it's a job. I think there's an issue with the concern of they need to be really authentic. You're authentic, but to be with them so they can actually tell you what is the issue. And so maybe you take notes of different examples. And I don't know if you've confronted the person to say, like you said, you didn't want to go and say, well, I told you so. So why is it? There's just some underlying thing there. Whether it's a male or female, there's still some underlying thing of that building that trust. So my thing is to have an honest conversation because it bothers you enough that you don't mind getting up and go to work, but why go to work and you work hard and pull some hours and time, and then people have to question you the second time? It's uncomfortable. But I would only suggest that over a period of time, you confront the person in a very positive way of some feedback. They give you feedback. It's like, hey, I've sit here, I've talked about this. You've come back and say this is right. I've told you this is the way that I'm respectful that you do things. What can I do differently to help you? And I know sometimes that's kind of hard. It's like, well, I'm already doing it. What can I do? So now you're putting them on the spot to tell you, how can we work in this relationship better? Because there's something that apparently I may not be doing, and I want to be able to support you because that's my job as your military person. So how can I help you more?
Right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Excellent.
No
Excellent.
problem, Janet. And please feel free to reach out for deeper conversations.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Admiral Andrews, we've got a great question that Nakia, I believe it is, Nakia Natil put in the chat, but I think I would prefer that Nikki ask this question to you verbally. Nakia, would you come up and ask your question of Admiral Andrews? Unmute, please. Nakia, are you there to unmute?
She said in the chat that she
said-
had problems unmuting.
Oh,
Correct.
okay. I cannot unmute right now. Okay, so I'll ask the question. It's a great question, which is why I would love to her to have asked it. Good evening, Admiral. Given your experience with recruiting and training, what advice do you have to effectively lead amidst the current workforce shortages across the military? Those of us who are still in feel the strain, and staying beyond 20 years feels unappealing at times. What a wonderful question. And you're very well suited to answer it.
That is an excellent question. And believe me, I still keep up because I do love my Navy. And I do concern myself because I want to make sure that we have that next group of leaders that are coming up. And you're right, in the positions that you're in, and I've heard this a couple of times too from others that I've trained and worked with across the way. You work hard because even in those jobs and recruiting and training, there's some really long hours, just like being almost out on the ship. So Nakia, great question. And the main thing I would say is that we need to continue to reach out. Don't really change the standards that we have because other countries are not changing theirs. But we also need to make sure we're taking care of our people better. And when I say that, I know it's long hours, we know what to expect, and you're willing to do that. But what can we do for people? Reward the people that are in. It appears sometimes we're rewarding the people that we want to get in. But those that are in already, and especially at those levels, we want them to stay at least more than 20. But I understand that it's difficult to think about that if you're not getting the support, if you're not getting the equipment that you need, if you see that your people are being beaten upon, so to speak, as, hey, they work, 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 but they're not getting rewarded. That's kind of hard to feel like you want to go on. The other I'll say, Nikki, is that you have to do what is best, of course, in each individual for themselves. Is this where I want to be? There was a time in my Navy career that I probably would have gotten out maybe at the halfway point because just some things that I saw. But then when people said, if you leave, then who will be there for us? And I thought about that for my junior officers and my junior enlisted. And I said, wow, that's powerful. I'll continue on. Because not that I was being mistreated, but I saw how things were. And I said, who wants to be in that type of organization? But we are the leaders. Be the leaders we need to be. Be the leaders we want for others and to help others. And that's what I would say as we go forward. Recruiting is tough. Training is tough. The times are even tougher. We still have a challenge with getting the most talented people in. We still have a challenge because of some of the medical issues or things that come about that we know of. But I am a very believer in the strength of America and the people that we have. It's just that we have to make sure that we take care of those already in, reward them, recognize them, and then again, reach out. I don't know, Nakia, if you need to write your comments in or if there's other questions that you have or if I somewhat responded to that, okay. But I thank you.
That's a great answer. And something else that Admiral Andrews and I have in common is that we've both had recruiting duty. I had recruiting duty as a lieutenant. I came back as a recruiting commodore of 8 recruiting districts in Great Lakes when she was commanding officer at the boot camp. And then I went on to recruiting command headquarters to become the operations officer. So something that we share is a love for recruiters. We know how hard they work, and your shortages today will not last forever. That we have been up and down, difficult and easy times. It's just a part of history. So you hang in there, and reliefs are coming. The difference that we have is we're not going to lower our standards to the rock bottom like other services are just to get butts on the bus. We're maintaining a very high standard, and I think that it's a matter of time. The bodies will show up well qualified to do their jobs. And even though I can tell you this as a matter of fact, the best tours I've had in my life were the hardest tours I had in my life. Ship's company on an aircraft carrier during Desert Shield and Desert Storm with 18 on and 4 off. Hardest tour of my life, but I enjoyed that like no other tour in the 31 years that I served. And I will tell you that serving sailors and serving this country, you're going to find a way to press through because I believe in you as well. Okay, let's see. Michael Johnson, we got a minute for another. Mike Johnson has had his hand up again most recently. Mike, go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Yes, Amber, it's more of a comment than to you and to the other officer who was experiencing some difficulties in her work center. Well, the first comment is that all those who have been prior enlisted, E1 and up, so I always had a special place in my heart when I became commissioned officer, because I know how E1s, E2s, how silent they are. If they're silent, that's the most time you need to be keeping your eyes on them, because they're having all kind of problems. They don't know who to go talk to. They're intimidated. So take care of those junior E1s, E2s, E3s, and those incidents also. Now the other thing is that the officer who was experiencing some pushback or cold shoulder in the workplace. Now, I'm a medical service corps officer. I was proud listed as a corpsman, went to school, Vietnam GI Bill, got commissioned. I worked for the VA for a while. You will find that federal employees who are civil service, who've never been in the military, are intimidated by those who are prior military, to the point to where it's about, this is mine, I control it, I don't want you to say anything. So when you have a situation, it's all in how you ask the question, how you phrase your questions. If you say, "I think you ought to do this," that means that you've made a decision. If you say, "Have you thought about doing this?" or "What do you think about this?" that's open-ended question. They get a chance to sort of hear it and decide yeah or nay. So try being more tactful in how you approach and ask them those questions. Be somewhat disarming, not being like you're intimidated, but you're trying to build the consensus. They know you're highly trained, and they are intimidated by you. They think you're there for their job, and you're there to basically show them up, and that could be very difficult on you and make you want to just leave or resign or go do something else. I thank you for your listening to my comments.
Thanks, Michael. And I'm going to close out the questions for now. I've got a couple of public service announcements I'd like to do before we give the Admiral a chance to say her final comments. One of which is what Tina Caston put in the chat. If you're a veteran and you served your country honorably, there are several organizations, like she put in here, aarp.org/veterans, where you can find resources if you need resources to help for training courses and any other kind of assistance that you need in transitioning, especially if you're a little bit more senior, 50 or older. That's a great organization for that. But I really want to push for making sure that you file with the VA for any disability benefits that you have earned. They're not giving you anything. You have earned these benefits because if you've served a certain amount of years, your body or your brain has undergone trauma, possibly, or some other things that you need assistance with. Don't forget that those VA benefits are there for you. And those of us that have filed and started at 30% and then got to 50 and then got to 70, and I'm proud to say I'm now 100% rated disabled veteran, and the benefits are worth the 31 years that I put in. And with ejection seat training and steel deck walking with knees and ankles and back and whatever else, I'm being properly compensated for those things now, and you should too. So don't hesitate to do so. If you need assistance, there are veteran service organizations out there to help you do that. And with that, finally, I'm going to thank Admiral Andrews for your just outstanding comments. Anyone who wants to look at all the previous fireside chats, we record them and they're on the NNOA site under transition assistance. Feel free to go back and listen to any of the other outstanding speakers. But Admiral, I'm going to give you the last word, and thank you so much again, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Tony, and everyone for your questions, your comments. I really appreciate it. I just want to say thank you once again. And don't forget the 3 L's I want to leave you with, and that's listen, lead, and learn. Always listen to those that are entrusted to you, learn from them, lead them well, and you will do well. And even when there's the hard times, know it will be better. Also, for those of you that have transitioned already or those that are going through the transition, know that you have exactly what it takes to go out into the civilian world and to do your best. Because I know the skill sets that you bring, and a lot of the employers out there know your integrity, your leadership, your style, your selfishness, and that's exactly what they want. They want you to be a part of them and their team. So I wish all of you all the best. Those that desire, please reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to. And I thank you so much for this opportunity, Tony, and everyone else. Thank you kindly.
Very, very
Tom,
good.
before we sign off, public service announcement that I forgot to mention just a little bit earlier is we're talking about taking care of our troops and folks that help us and that kind of thing. One of the people that's on the transition assistance team, our own Mike Francis, has a birthday today, and we couldn't get out without him. So I want to say
Absolutely.
happy birthday, Mike, and I'm sure everybody else is saying the same thing to you.
There he goes. He
We
finally puts
appreciate
his
you.
face back on there. Happy birthday, Mike.
Happy
Thank you
birthday,
very much.
Mike.
Thank you very much, everyone. Really
I think
appreciate
he's celebrating the 50th anniversary of his 27th birthday.
it. You're right. Exactly right.
Well,
Exactly
happy
right.
birthday, Mike.
Thank you much,
We'll
everyone.
go ahead and cancel the record, and we'll have the after party afterward, after we turn off the recording.
Let me do this.